The Planning and Zoning Commission makes recommendations to the City Council. Any item approved today will be heard by the City Council at its regular meeting on Wednesday, August the 28th, 2019, commencing at 9 a.m. If you received a notice for this meeting, you have also received a notice for the City Council meeting. Agenda item ZA 19-001 will additionally be heard by City Council on Wednesday, August 14th, 2019. Subdivision plats are approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission solely unless there's a request for a waiver or escrow fees or construction. Only the City Council makes financial decisions. If any item is denied, the applicant has 10 calendar days to file a written appeal with the Planning Department. The appeal will then be acted upon by the City Council. If you're here to speak for or against an item, when that item is called for review, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Comments to the Planning and Zoning Commission should only be made from the podium. This will ensure that the comments will be picked up by the microphones and will be recorded as part of the official record. Comments should be limited to 5 minutes or less. The next work session will be held directly after the conclusion of this meeting. Will be open to the public and will be held over here at the Tyler Development Center across the street at 423 West Ferguson in the large conference room. Thank you all for coming today. Zach, will you call the roll?
Yes. Pamela Phoenix.
Here.
Jimmy Reed.
Here.
Beth Whitney.
Here.
David Dobbs. Felicity Reedy.
Here.
Blair Swing.
Here.
And Jeb Jones.
All right, Commissioners, what do you want to do with the minutes?
I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Thank you, Beth.
Second.
Thank you, Pam. All those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed. All right, we have some tabled items. Tharani, do you want to tell us about them?
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
You're exactly right. And we can take them all off the table at the same time. All right, Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to request that we remove the tabled items.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Swain will be the second. All those, is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and good afternoon to everyone present here. The first tabled item is P19-007, Seven Hills Preliminary Plat. This is a plan for 13-lot subdivision containing approximately 68.23 acres of land located at the southwest intersection of Hobbs Road and Seven Hills Road. This is currently located in the Zone 2 of Tyler ETJ, and the purpose of the plat is to plan for 13 lots. All of the staff comments have been addressed, and staff recommends approval of this plat.
Are there any questions for Thrani? I don't think I have any cards for this one. Do I hear a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve P19-007.
Thank you, Beth.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes, ma'am, second one.
The next item on the agenda is the final plat for the same preliminary plat we just saw. This would be a 12-lot subdivision containing approximately 14.40 acres of land located at the southwest intersection of Hobbs Road and Seven Hills. All of the staff comments have been addressed, and staff recommends approval of this plat.
Does anybody have any questions they didn't think of last time? And I don't have a card, so do I hear a motion?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve F19-037.
Thank you,
Second.
Mr. Reed. Thank you, Ms. Phoenix. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes, ma'am.
The next plat is the one-lot subdivision. This is located along North Broadway Avenue. The purpose of this plat is to create just one lot. Not all the staff comments have been addressed, and staff recommends tabling this item for 30 more days.
Any follow-up questions?
Tharani, any particular reason why for the tabling? What were the issues that need to be addressed?
Yes, the property is currently zoned C1, which is light commercial district, and the lot is too small for C1, so they will have to do a zone change, and we are waiting on the applicant to make a decision on this one.
Okay, do they feel that they can make a decision and get their application in within 30 days?
It looks like they did not want to do a zone change, but we are recommending them to do a zone change in order for this plat to get approved, so that's what we are waiting on.
Okay, I'm waiting on them to make a decision. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? I don't have a card for this one either, so do I hear a motion?
Madam Chairman, I move that we approve F19-05.
Table.
We want to table it again?
I'm sorry. I move that we table F19-053 for 30 days.
Excellent, thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye to table.
Aye.
The next item, this is the 5-lot subdivision containing approximately 6.17 acres of land located at the southeast intersection of Bellwood Road and Whiteside Road. This property is currently zoned M1, and the purpose of this plat is to create 5 lots. All of the staff comments have been addressed, and staff recommends approval of this plat.
Any follow-up questions for Tharani? I don't have a card for this one either. These are easy to work with. Do I hear a motion?
I would like to move that we approve F19-051.
Thank you, Ms. Whitney.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next is to the zoning agenda, and I'm going to hand it over to Heather.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
This is part of our regular Unified Development Code amendments that we take through the Planning and Zoning Commission at least twice a year, and for you to vet it before it goes to council for final consideration. We have only 2 items right now that are substantive, and the first item is associated with a change that happened with our 3-way contracts. And this is a separate ordinance from the UDC, but since there was an associated impact to a portion of our code in the UDC, it did go through our regular process where we first take all of the UDC proposed amendments to the Unified Development Code Committee for their consideration and their input. They really help us as a focus group to let us know how things could be improved. And then from there, we took these changes also to the Developers Roundtable for their consideration and their input. And there was a general consensus for approval for all of these items that I'll present. But this one was specifically just to change what was previously required as a 10% maintenance bond associated with 3-way contracts, and now changing that to a 100% maintenance bond. And then our other item that we are taking is to allow for interstate signage. Previously, the City of Tyler did not have interstate signage in our code because we didn't have any property that fronted along the interstate, but we do now. We recently had, in recent past, have annexed land adjacent to Highway 20, or Interstate 20. And now we have the need to allow for the taller signs so that they can be used for those properties that have frontage along the interstate. What we did in preparation for this is look at the codes that Lindale has for their signage to make sure that we were being reasonable and that we were being competitive, and we weren't putting any property owners at a disadvantage for having maybe a shorter sign or whatnot. So we're consistent with those standards, and those are laid out here in the recommendations as far as mirroring those standards of Lindale, and also limiting the number of signs, making sure that there's not sign clutter, but allowing for appropriate number. And then we had also the maximum face size of the signs at 400 square feet, and then the overall height would be a maximum of 150. And then we received some really good feedback from our Unified Code Committee about having properties that were over an acre within 660 feet of the interstate. They would be allowed to have the signage. And then one interstate sign in addition to the existing sign allowances that they're already allowed to have, as those are the smaller signs that front on the other road, on the other streets rather than off of the interstate. And then finally, we have a couple of clarification items that included removing any kind of mention of the sign standards for Tyler Transit. Tyler Transit certainly has their own policies related to signs that they may display in or outside of their buses or other types of facilities. And in reviewing this, it was deemed inappropriate that we would specifically call out Tyler Transit for their signage, and we'll let them regulate that themselves. And then also the donation containers that we had brought to the Planning and Zoning Commission maybe a year or so ago to make sure that we're clarifying that the property owner obtains the temporary use permit and not the vendor. So there were situations where a vendor would not even contact the property owner even before they put the structure, the box on their property. And this is to make sure that property owners are aware that this activity is happening and that they are in agreement with that type of activity. And with that, again, we took it to the Unified Development Review Code Committee as well as Developers Roundtable, and everybody is in general consensus with the recommended changes, and staff recommends approval.
Can I put you on the spot for just a minute? So I know that sometimes these are citizen-initiated changes. Can you just tell everybody just in a couple minutes how that staggers all the way up and becomes an ordinance for the city?
Yes. Sometimes it's not just staff identifying changes that need to happen in the code. It's we actually get requests from citizens, or maybe it's the development community. It's someone in the community that's identified maybe something that could merit further review in the code. And maybe it's something that needs to be changed. Maybe it's because of technology changes. Maybe it's because of state legislative changes. There's all kinds of things that could change in our community that would merit changes to our code. And so we want to be adaptive and react to those changes and make sure that those changes or those recommended changes are fully vetted through our various boards and our focus groups to make sure that we're making changes that positively impact our community and that are in line with our goals from our comprehensive plan. So that's what you see when we're asked from maybe a member of the community to look at a certain provision in the code. Is we'll do some research, and then we'll take all of that information through our various committees and whatnot and fully vet it and see, okay, is this a good change for our community, and is there support for that type of change? And then we carry it all the way up through to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then finally to City Council to make the final decision on those ordinance changes.
And you referred slyly to being a good neighbor, so we try to be good neighbors to our surrounding communities and keep.
Yes. We certainly want to make sure that we're being good neighbors and also that we're keeping up with current standards and maybe development techniques, and that we're being adaptive when we can to make sure that we're building a community that our community's vision is in line with.
Does anybody have any questions for Heather as follow-up?
I have a few technical questions for you, Heather, and I hope that we don't get too deep into the woods about it, but I just want some clarification. On the maintenance and guarantee of public improvements changes, did I hear you say that these changes have already been implemented, and that this is since this is copied as part of the UDC, that this is just a compliance change? Is that correct, or is this actually the change that's going to be made?
This is an association with a greater change to a different section of the ordinance or chapter of the ordinance, which is, falls under, I believe, well, the purview of the city engineer.
Right.
And that is going to actually go to council, I believe, on August 14th for their consideration.
Okay.
It didn't come to the Planning and Zoning Commission because that particular chapter isn't under our authority.
Right.
But this portion was impacted by that larger amendment that's being
Yes.
proposed from the other chapter. So we made sure to look through our code and see if there were any other sections that could have been impacted, and this was the only one. And to coincide with those changes, because if it looks like there is support for that change, that it's actually been something that they have wanted to amend for a number of years, and they've finally come up with a great resolution that works for everyone.
Okay.
And this part, in vetting it, was addressed, and it came out that this needed to be changed, and in order for the entire policy to change that they're trying to accomplish, we had to make sure that we were bringing this to the P&Z Commission before we took it to City Council. And we'll be taking both items
Sure.
from the item that the city engineer will be presenting, as well as the UDC portion at the same council meeting, so it's cohesive.
Sure. So the removal of the three-way contract portion, I know that's part of the minutia that goes along with developing here in Tyler, but I just want to make sure that that doesn't reduce the amount of oversight, inspections, and approvals and that kind of thing that the Development Services Department and the city engineers that they do. We're not getting out of that, but really we're changing the system to be more in line with maybe what other cities are doing, or more streamlined.
Right. There's certainly no intention to reduce the amount of oversight
Okay.
and inspection that is done. The city engineer, I believe, is here. Yes, she's here in the audience if you would like some more detailed information.
Okay.
But this certainly was a way to address some, I guess, obstacles that the development community were facing with three-way contracts. And this is to make it into a more streamlined process, but at the same time ensuring the city's interest as well as our community's interest. But
Sure.
if you'd had more detailed questions, Elisa would probably be more appropriate, as I
Yeah.
don't have oversight over
Sure.
that area.
Yeah, maybe if she could speak, that'd be good.
Good afternoon.
How was it?
So the question is...
Name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry. Lisa Crossman, City Engineer, 511 West Locust. The question is the amount of oversight once
Yes.
we eliminate the three-way contracts. So the ordinance the other ordinance that doesn't fall under the purview of this commission is Chapter 19, which is the ordinance that deals with water utilities. It deals with extensions of water and sewer mains by private developers as well as by the city. For as long as I'm aware, the city has required three-way contracts
Yes.
to facilitate the extension of water and sewer utilities under private development scenarios. The changes that we've made, we actually are still going to require a lot of the same paperwork that is actually required by the contract. We're still going to require all of the bonds, all of the testing fees, and the testing fees are what pay for the inspections and the testing to make sure that everything is being built in accordance with our standards and specifications. So we still require all of that documentation and those fees and whatnot. We're just not requiring it in the form of an actual executed contract.
Okay. Just one follow-up question to that. So traditionally, a developer would need to pick from a list of city-approved contractors. And so is that going to continue now as well, or is it now open to other contractors too that can provide bonding?
Yeah, we aren't changing the requirement for the
Okay.
approved contractors. We still are going through that process of requiring contractors who want to be considered approved for certain types of work to submit the qualification and financial data that they've been having to submit for several years
Yes.
now to be on that list.
Okay, so it sounds like more of an efficiency move, really, than any kind of policy change.
Correct.
Okay, very nice. Thank you.
Any other further questions for Lisa? Thank you. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Does anybody in the audience have any follow-up questions on any of these items or this particular change?
Okay. Madam Chairman, I'd like to request that we approve ZA 19-001.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Phoenix. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The next item on the agenda is Z19020. This is a zone change request from AG Agricultural District to C2 General Commercial District. This is a property that's located along Highway 69 North towards I-20. The applicant is requesting the zone change to allow for recreational vehicle sales. All of the surrounding properties are located outside the city limits and therefore bears no zoning classification. The property to the north, east, and south are currently undeveloped, and the property to the west is the location of Tyler Oaks RV Resort. This would amend the future land use guide from agricultural to general commercial district. A little bit history on that property. This property was the previous location of Chambly's Rose Nursery. The property was annexed in 2010 as a part of a development agreement with the city of Tyler. And when it was brought in as an agricultural district to accommodate the cultivation and sales of flora for the Chambly's Rose Nursery. The applicant is requesting to currently use the existing building, let me put that in there, the existing building for the temporary RV sales while a permanent structure is being constructed on the remaining part of the property. They're going to be having a sales room and a service center for the recreational RV sales. The staff has also informed the applicant that in case if they want to use the city's services in the future for the rest of the property, it would be better recommended they annex that property into the city limits. That's the strike pictures. And out of the 5 notices that was sent, none of them were received in favor or in opposition to the request. Staff has performed a technical review of the request and finds that it generally is consistent with the approval criteria presented before.
Any further questions for Ronnie? I have one card, and it's from the applicant, Jeff Schubert. Do you want to? Does anybody have questions for Mr. Schubert? To show that Jeff Schubert, 12735 Bonington Range Drive, Boynton Beach, Florida, was here to answer questions. Does anybody else have any questions on this item? Right, commissioners.
Madam Chair, I make a motion we approve item Z19-020.
Thank you, Mr. Swain. Thank you, Ms. Whitney. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, Z19-021.
This is a zone change request from AG Agricultural District to M1, which is Light Industrial District. This is a property that's located along East Grande Boulevard. The applicant is requesting to change the zoning from AG to M1 to allow for a commercial development. The property to the east is zoned RMF. It is shown as AG in the map, but it was just recently rezoned from AG to RMF. It was approved by the council, and it is undeveloped. And the property to the north and west is zoned AG and is also undeveloped. The property to the south is zoned M1 and AG and is developed with commercial properties. This would indeed amend the future land use guide from single-family medium low density to general commercial. As this property is located along Grande Boulevard, this is a major arterial street. The applicant also owns the property to the south, and the main reason for this request is to construct a new access from Grande Boulevard to the commercial property that's located adjacent to the south of the subject property. Also, the applicant plans to develop the rest of the property for future commercial and office uses. The applicant had initially requested the zone change from AG to M1, but after consulting with the staff had recommended to the applicable zoning would be C2 and not M1, and the applicant has agreed to amend their request from M1 to C2. This is the location of the property. Out of the 13 notices that were sent, none was received in favor or in opposition to the request. Staff has performed a technical review of the request and finds that is generally consistent with the approval criteria. So therefore, the staff recommends approval from AG to C2.
What is their current access now, Ronnie?
It's off of the Deer Brook Drive. That's towards the west.
Right here.
Thorny, what was the particular reasoning for not doing M1 but doing C2? Was it cohesion on Grande or?
Well, the future plans for the applicant, he said that he wanted to have a commercial or office uses, and
Sure.
they did not want to use anything like for industrial.
Industrial uses, okay.
So based on the usage, we recommended that C2 would be the appropriate, not M1.
Understood, yeah. You might have already said that, but if you did, I'm sorry. Apologize.
Any further questions for Tharani? I have, anybody in the audience would like to offer anything, ask any questions?
Madam Chairman, I move that we approve Z19-021.
Thanks, Ms. Phoenix.
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And to just reiterate, C2?
Yes.
Yes. All right, Z19-022.
This is a zone change request from R2 to Family Residential District to M1 Light Industrial District. The applicant is requesting to change the zoning on a 0.83 acre portion of that particular property, which is located at the south intersection of East Irvin and North Beverly Street, to allow for a tattoo shop. The property to the north and west is zone M1, which is developed with single-family home and a tire shop, and is also remaining portion is an undeveloped lot. The property to the east is zone C2 and is the location of a restaurant. The property to the south are all zoned R2 and has a single-family homes and also some undeveloped lot. This future land use guide, this request is consistent with the future land use guide, and it identifies this property as general commercial district. The applicant, same as the previous request, the applicant had initially requested to change the zoning to M1, but after consulting with the staff for tattoo studio, we recommended that C2 would be the appropriate usage for the property, and so the applicant has requested to amend their request from M1 to C2. The other portion of the property is zoned M1, which is light industrial district, and it has like a warehouse usage on the particular piece of the property, and the remaining portion would be used for the tattoo studio. Out of the 13 notices that were sent, none was received in favor or in opposition to the request, and staff has performed a technical review of the request and finds that it is generally consistent with the approval criteria.
Tharani, this is primarily to just bring into conformance a split zoning across the parcel. Is that true, or is there more to it?
The R2 does not allow for commercial use, and that is one of the main reasons they want to.
Okay, but it's not, but it's all the same parcel. It's split zoning on the parcel, correct?
That is
And
correct.
it's to bring the entire parcel into the same zoning classification?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any follow-up questions for Tharani?
Well, I just want to clarify that the M1 portion would still remain as M1, and the rest of the portion would become C2, because we notified it as that way, and that's how the applicant wanted it.
Okay.
I have a card,
Understood, yeah.
but I am unable to read it. I'm sorry. Oh, will you want to come up and talk to us? I'm sorry. Tell us your last name. And tell us your name and address, and to the microphone for us, okay?
It's Romero Saldivar, and the address is 809 East Irwin Street.
And are you the applicant then?
Yes.
Do you want to, does anybody have any follow-up questions for him?
What are the areas adjacent to them zoned? Is it residences or is it commercial?
It's a residential building, but it's really a commercial building. I don't know why there's nothing residential about it, so we're just trying to get that, because they're not letting me open up without it.
But residences are around it?
Yes, there's one right across the street. That's the only one.
Okay.
To the south of residential. Any follow-up questions for the applicant?
Well,
Any further follow-up from the audience? Commissioners?
Madam Chairman, I move that we approve for C2, Z19-022.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Whitney. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I should have been saying any opposed. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, next, Z19-019.
This is a zone change request from M2 General Industrial District to R1B Single Family Residential District. This property is located at the northwest intersection of Industrial Avenue and May Street. The applicant is requesting the zone change to bring the existing single family home into conformance. The property to the north and west is zoned M2, and property to the north is location of a single family home, and the property to the west is the location of a Hood Packaging Corporation. The property to the south and east are zone R1B and are developed with single-family homes. This request is consistent with the future land use guide, and it identifies this property as single-family, medium-low density. All of the properties along Industrial Avenue, along that stretch, are all single-family homes, and they're just bringing it into conformance. It was developed when permit zoning was in practice with the city of Tyler, and they're just clearing it up and bringing it into conformance. Out of the 19 notices that were sent, none was received in favor or in opposition to the request, and staff has performed a technical review of the request and finds that it is generally consistent with the approval criteria.
Any follow-up questions for Tharani? Anybody else wants to talk to us about this issue? All right.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we approve Z19-019.
Thanks, Ms. Whitney.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Phoenix. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, C19-003.
This is a right-of-way closure for an unimproved portion of Rake Road. The applicant is requesting to close this portion of a Rake Road to replat the right-of-way into adjacent properties. The property to the north is zone RMF and is undeveloped, and the property to the south and east is zone RPO and is also undeveloped, and the property to the west is zone R1A and is also undeveloped. Previously, an unimproved portion of Rake Road, beginning at the intersection of Rake Road and Eagles Nest Boulevard that you could see to the east, and continuing to the west, approximately 400 feet was closed a few years ago. And this portion of Rake Road that the application is currently requesting was also a part of that same request, but it was not platted within 6 months into the adjoining properties, and so they're bringing it back here so that they could close it and then replat it into the adjacent properties. That's the main reason for the request, and out of the 5 notices that was sent, none was received in favor or in opposition to the request, and staff has performed a technical review and finds that it is consistent with the approval criteria.
Seems like an easy one, so I'm not going to ask for any comments. Who wants to make a motion?
I'll make a motion we approve item C19-003.
Thank you, Mr. Swaim.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Bradbury was here for... I'm glad you had nothing to say. All right. Let the record show that Brent Bradbury was here to speak on that item, if we had any questions. All right.
Going to the plat section, the first plat is F19063. This is a 23-lot subdivision containing approximately 3.1010 acres of land located south of the intersection of Teal Flight Way and Stonebrine Crossing. This property is currently zoned PUR. This is Planned Unit Residential District, and the purpose of this plat is to create 23 lots, and you can see 2 slides for the plat. The staff has received the preliminary plat for this particular plat, and without the preliminary plat, the final plat cannot be approved, so the staff is recommending tabling the item for 30 days.
Okay, we also have the applicant here to available for questions. Is that, do we want to? No? Any further, any follow-up for
Is 30
Tharani?
days enough?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we table F19-063 for 30 days.
Thank you, Ms. Whitney.
Second.
Thank you,
Madam
Ms.
Chairman.
Phoenix. Any further questions? Any follow-up discussion? All those in favor to table F19-063, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's tabled.
The next item is F19-046, Brook Hollow addition. This is a two-lot subdivision containing approximately .42 acres of land located north of the northwest intersection of Hollow Brook Drive and Springbrook Drive. The property is currently zoned R1B. The purpose of the plat is to subdivide one lot into two, and since the property is zoned R1B, the state law requires the adjacent properties within 200 feet to be notified, and that's why it's on the agenda. And all of the staff comments that have been addressed, and staff recommends approval of this plat.
Any follow-up questions for Tharani? Anybody else have any comments or input into this item? So I don't know if somebody maybe wrote down the wrong item here, because this address is 6027 Springbrook. Is that? So maybe we just wrote the wrong item number. Do you have any, you want to speak to us? Or you answer any question? Okay. Excellent. All right. Any other discussion on this item?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve F19-046.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Swaim. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, that's the last item we have. Meeting's adjourned.
Before we adjourn,
Recess.
I would.
I'm sorry, we recessed
Before
to
we
the next
recess.
meeting. Yes.
Before we recess, if it's okay, I would just like to say thank you so much, Felicity, for
You're welcome.
everything that you have added,
you.
specifically to me, and then also to the Planning and Zoning Commission
You're
for
very
your
nice.
last 6 years of service.
Even
and
though I
for-
told you not to do this.
Yes, I understand that. But you've added so much, and I can't leave here without saying how much we
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
you
Thank you very much.
here.
The entire commission feels that same
Thank you
way.
very much.
That's correct.
All
Well,
right.
you know I
Yes.
have a really special
Meeting recessed.